Hey everybody. I say everybody, there's no one actually currently watching, but I will say that anyway, just in case people watch this back later. So this is the first live stream back since, well, it's probably been over a year since I did a live stream, just haven't had the broadband. Now I have. So here we are, this is the first. There will be many more, many more. Beans, cool beans. So yeah, just cracking on really. Feel free to chat away. I'm kind of, my second screen covers my chat window sometimes, so I may not see it straight away, but I will do my best to respond as quickly as possible once I do see what you're saying. Hey, how you doing, Sensi? Boom, yeah, quite. I've got no idea how long the delay is, so I apologize if I'm taking... It's good to be back, my friend. Nice to be able to interact with people in real time. I feel like communicating with people via comments is always a little bit harder to do. I feel like sometimes like people don't understand the context of my comments, or vice versa. Sometimes I miss the point, so it's good to be back in real time. Just waiting for the eternal loading of this scene. It's just so goddamn slow. I feel bad for people who've got a really, and not got like a... I haven't exactly got a super rig, but my rig's pretty powerful. I mean, I've got 32 gig of RAM, Intel i9, and an RTX 3080 Pro GPU. So for someone trying to use this current permutation of Daz Studio, because maybe I've just got something. I've probably got loads of bugs, loads of conflicting assets and stuff because I moved hard drives. How you doing, Sensi? Anyway, you living the dream? God damn, this is slow loading. Slow even for my PC. Goodness me. I'm just doing some renders for the game I'm working on, really. I've been working on this game for a few weeks, probably a little bit longer actually, but I'm just having a break from working on the main game that everybody always complains about me not developing. So I'm just doing, knocking up a few renders, thought I might as well live stream it. Living something, not sure if it's a dream or... Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Hey, look, it's finally loading. God damn. Hey, Juven. Yes, let's Daz. My God, that took a long time to load. How embarrassing. Oh well. It's still having a think. Still having a think. Right, I'm going to try and... Once this is finally loaded... Hey! Right, let's try and make that... I'm doing stuff off screen so that I can still have my content library. No, I can't do that. Let's try it now. Ah, there we go. Now I can have my content library and stuff up and still see you guys chatting. Perfecto. Right, what the hell was I doing? Oh, right, yeah. I was punching myself in the face with a microphone. Okay. I'm actually going to delete this character from the scene because she's an old version of the mum character. I'm going to just go into my characters and I'm going to load in the newer version. Yeah, man, living the dream is a bit of a oxymoron at this point, isn't it? I mean, oh man, COVID. I gained so much weight through COVID, it's genuinely depressing. Yes, mate, I got 3080. I ordered it in September. I ordered it when it came out. Literally the day after it came out. But I didn't actually get it until December. So I can only imagine what people who've been waiting, you know, what is it now? It's June, so that's 9 months ago. I'd imagine there might even still be people waiting. That's crazy. It's a damn long time to be waiting for a GPU. Being completely honest, I have noticed the render time's definitely faster with the 3080. There's no doubt about that. But is it so much faster that the 3 months wait was worth it? Hey, Rude. Watching during work, yeah. Oh dear. As long as you've got your headphones on, you're fine. I'll try not to drop any F-bombs. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, is the 3080 worth the 3 month wait or the 6 month wait or the 9 month wait? Was the improvement to my render times that much faster? If I knew when I ordered it what the performance was going to be like, I probably would have waited. It is a lot faster, there's no doubt about it, but the stress, and it's not stress, that's the wrong word, but checking the website that I ordered it from every day to find out if they've had a delivery in that's going to cover my order and all that sort of thing was just irritating. I mean, it cost me, 900 plus. I'm trying to remember how much it cost now. It's a lot of money. It was a lot of money. It was the going rate for the 3080 at the time. Are you in the which navy are you in, Rude? Goodness me, this is slow today. I'm not doing anything else, am I? Nope, not loading, not doing anything else. No, it's just freaking slow. I really need to go through my log and just the Netherlands. I've worked with the Netherlands Navy before, actually. When I was in the Royal Navy, we went down to West Africa to do some disaster relief exercises. We went and built some bridges and some schools and stuff. It was good times. Well, relatively speaking, probably not so much good times for the locals, but we had a nice time. Okay, she's loaded. Where is she? 2070. So yeah, 2070. I mean, bear in mind, I upgraded from a 1070 Ti. So it was a huge boost in speed for rendering in particular. But as I say, I mean, it wasn't prohibitively expensive. It was just really irritating because the website that I ordered it from, overclockers, were less than helpful. Their customer service seemed to just basically be them complaining every day about how mean people were being for having paid crazy money for a GPU and not getting it delivered in a reasonable time. So, not necessarily overclockers' fault. Nvidia kind of screwed the pooch on that one. But if you're selling something you haven't got, you're going to have to expect people to give you grief about it. It's just, What did they expect? They were charging £900 for a GPU that they hadn't actually got in stock. Hey Neville, how you doing, man? South Australia. Wow. How's winter? I say that, it's not exactly sunny here today. Mind you, it's England, so it's never that sunny. Actually, that's not fair. The weather's been pretty spectacular for the last few weeks. It's only the last couple of days that have been really crap. Right, is she actually in the scene now? I've sort of lost the plot a little bit here. Right, no, there she is. She is in the scene. Okay. So, I've completely forgotten what I was doing. Oh yeah, so I'm going to move her over there. She's going to maybe have her cleaning the pool or something. This is the starts of a conversation, I think. So we'll get her posed up. Give her a nice pose and then see where we go from there. So this is a scene, it's kind of a mishmash of many different scenes and assets. I feel like cold and wet, yeah, I'd imagine it probably is. So I've taken a pool from one scene, I've taken this fence railing from another scene and just built a fence around this little sort of area. I've used walls from another scene, windows. So I'm kind of pinching props from all over the place, and then I've built this hedgerow around here and around that side. And then I've used just individual tree props to kind of shelter or shield the scene. So when you're in this kind of region, you're looking that way, there is an HDRI there, it's creating a light and it does have trees in it, but this foliage here gives you the illusion that it's not an HDRI. It's hard to explain, but silicon shortage. Yeah, absolutely. Nvidia definitely screwed up, there's no question about it. They massively overpromised. They should have known what they were getting into. They should have produced more than enough GPUs. I know that the way companies are doing things now, like Steam, for example, almost every other game on Steam now is early access. So they're quite literally selling a product that isn't actually finished, which kind of leaves a bit of a bitter aftertaste in my mouth. I will be honest. Because I feel like it's some of it's in bad faith, a lot of it is in good faith. Like small developers, being a game developer myself, I completely understand, and not having the money to, if I had money, all of my games would be finished in considerably better time because I'd be able to hire other people, buy pre-made assets, etc. So I get it. Selling a game in early access if you haven't got any money is great, but then there's the other kind of developers, the likes of I can't remember who it is. Subnautica Below Zero is a prime example. They made bank on their first game, and then they released their second game on early access again, and you feel like you don't need the money now. What are you doing? How do you make it work to use HDRI in the same place but have different time of day? I actually did a video on, let me show you, give you a quick example. So let's put it into here. I'll go into Nvidia IO mode. Just give me a few minutes while it has a think about what it's doing. And now go into my render settings. It's just going to chuck out. So it'll give us a daytime render here. And it will eventually. Now bear in mind that this scene is not set up to be a night scene, so things like you're going to be able to see what's going on in these windows a little bit better when I change it. But so I'll bring in my render settings, and I'm going to go into the environment. Give that a moment. 32 gig of RAM, ladies and gentlemen. Still slow as. Right, so we've got our HDRI there. We've got our HDRI intensity. What we can do If I click on the tint when it stops trying to load the, right, click on the tint, and now I come into, if I come down here and I go into sort of like a midnight blue purpley kind of scene, and then I drag that out of the way, and immediately you can see we've got kind of like a nighttime thing going on here. Obviously, in order to change this to a nighttime scene, I would have to adjust the lighting inside this room and set it up for a night scene, but you can basically, you get the gist of it. It's really that simple, my friend. Go back to daytime. And there we go. So now I can come back out of Nvidia Iray mode, come out of this camera, back into perspective view. Cool beans. So yeah, apart from that, yeah, so I just feel like some companies sort of abuse the early access system, but can I honestly say I wouldn't do the same if I was in their shoes? No. If you've got an option to get instant cash flow, you're probably going to take it, aren't you, really? Still love the fact, like, I'm still enjoying playing Death Stranding, to be honest. I've been playing that. I know a lot of people call it. No, it's cool, man. It's cool. It's one of those things that you just kind of get experimenting with Daz Studio, and it doesn't always just doesn't always appear obvious, you know. What am I doing? I'm going to give her a I wonder, maybe she can be sitting. Why would she be sitting on the floor? She's got a chair. I'm going to have her standing. It's fine. Kind of having a conversation, trying to find a pose where they're not virtually, you know, they're not doing a page 3 pose or tampering with themselves is such a challenge. If I ever start selling stuff on the Daz Studio store, it'll be boring as hell poses, just standard. I could just put some stuff like that in my on the download section of the website, which I assume a handful of people have at least visited and seen the downloads. I'm only putting like really basic stuff on there at the moment. Maybe that'll change in the future, but time's more than anything else at the moment, because obviously I've got to work. Natural. Look at that, natural poses, and there they are, flirtingly looking over. Look, oh, this is just, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to insult somebody else's products, because everything's got a use. Everything has a use. And that might do. Yeah. It's the same with clothing, though, isn't it, these days? I mean, it's about as close to normal as I can find. So if I want to get a little bit of interest in the background, so maybe the door. Maybe I'll have the door in the background. Let's give ourselves a camera just here. And yeah, so we'll go into that camera. Zoom in. I'm interested to know what people think, because I uploaded some camera presets that actually took me a while to make. Not because the process of making the camera preset is really easy, but finding the information that you need to create the camera preset, that's the complex part. Because in all fairness, the Daz Studio camera settings, there are quite a lot of bits and pieces there that you can tamper with. It's crazy. It really is. You get the feeling that Daz Productions have full awareness that the majority of people using their software are creating adult visual novels based on the level of the content that they are selling. All that talk on their website of them saying, oh, well, our models are so good that they could be used for the Avengers, but they weren't. That's like me saying, I'm such a great artist that I could have worked on the Avengers, but I didn't. It's irrelevant what it could or couldn't. Yeah, there are some problems with some of the old clothing in particular. I mean, this one's a prime example. I mean, I'm going to, in fact, you know what? I'm going to do it now while you guys are watching. So I'm going to select this part of the shirt, and I'm going to go into surfaces. This may go hideously wrong because it doesn't actually have a simulation. Yeah, well, exactly. It's you know, you've got to sell to the people that are watching, isn't it? Right, this could all go horribly wrong because these are all different surfaces. So if they're not welded, then the simulation will fail. But let's go with. I'm sort of, well, sometimes I just do them for my own fun, you know, but mostly they're for some of the games that I'm working on. I made the mistake. My first ever visual novel is the one that everyone remembers. I'm not going to say the name here because it is it was an adult visual novel. It got me banned from Patreon and all sorts. So anyway, I've been creating visual novels, and that's what I largely use these images for. But as I learn things, if I learn something new, I'll create a YouTube video to show other people how I do it, because I remember trying to learn all this stuff on my own. It was really difficult. It's one of those weird things, isn't it? I mean, I remember the first visual novel I played was a very well-known one, and like you, I didn't get obsessed with playing them, but I got obsessed with the idea that I could do it just as well. And I played a lot of VNs trying to kind of figure out how things worked and all of that, and then I'd already got a programming background from college, so I started learning RemPy and started learning Daz Studio. But it was such a painful process to learn the basics of Daz Studio. That's why I started this channel. Just wanted to share the info. And I probably stepped on a few toes in doing so, because I still get, like, you know, the odd dislike or whatever. But honestly, I don't care. I'm just trying to share information. Coffee mugs. That's cool. That's cool. But yeah, the visual novel thing. I remember feeling like the big three that I can think of, I'm again not going to name them, it's not really an appropriate place to do so, but they were good, but I always felt like there was not enough depth, and that's one of the reasons why my first VN got the name it did, because I wanted to go deeper. But yeah, and now I'm having a break from. Can I show you the render settings? Which render settings do you want to know, my friend? Usually, I mean, it depends on. I mean, I haven't got a problem with showing you what's on my screen, but you're not going to find a great deal of useful information in there. I've got an HDRI with default settings on it. Tone mapping is all on default. Do you know, I'm the other way around. Maya, if I go on LinkedIn Learning and I'll watch a series on Maya, I'll be great with it for about a week, and then I'll stop using it for a few days, and then I'll come back and I'll forget everything. I won't be able to. I'll have to watch the videos again. but Maya has got so much more functionality than Daz. Daz is not a sculpting or 3D creation tool at all. It's just a rendering engine. They've sort of shoehorned animation into it, but essentially you need to create the assets elsewhere. I mean, you've seen me do videos where I create rooms and things like that, but that's really not what Daz Studio is designed for. Whereas the likes of Blender and Maya, they're from the ground up, pixel, vertex by vertex, you know. So, what was I doing? Oh, right, I was going to give her... Yeah, Blender's absurd as well. Like the sculpting thing in Blender is amazing because that's basically giving you this very similar functionality to the likes of ZBrush, but it's free. So ZBrush are going to have to do some pretty amazing things to be able to stay on the top of that one. Well, there's two questions there for Evo. So you've got, if I could add any functions to Daz, what would they be? That's another very good question. The time it takes you to learn Freevo is really how long it takes you to learn. It's taken me, I've been using Daz Studio now for 3 years. And I still learn new stuff all the time because there's things you just don't do every day. Like I don't rig models every day. I don't, there's things that I don't do every day that I would have to now go back and watch the video that I made to be able to remember how to do it because you just, skill fade. But it's not just using Daz Studio. You also need to understand how to use RenPy or Unity or whatever it is you're using to create your adult game with. You need to learn how to use that as well. Animation smoothing, actually there's a workaround for that. I'll talk about that in a minute. If I could add any functions to Daz, it would probably be the ability to go through your fault log, find all of the assets that conflict with each other, and either fix them or delete them. Because that is the #1 thing that takes the most time. If it takes me 3 or 4 minutes to load a model into my game, into my scene, because I've got assets that conflict with each other, or there's duplicate formulas or whatever, and the log is freaking huge. It'd take me hours to go through it and find every single asset. So that's what I would go with. Animation smoothing you can actually do in Adobe After Effects. And I may do a video on that at some point soon. So I'll show you actually. I've got some movies. Okay. So this is an animation of the mum character on a deck chair spinning round. Fine, you think. Right now, so that is a 30 frames per second animation, but it only lasts for 1 second. If I want to go slower, that's still the same 30 frames per second animation that I created using Daz. Let's play that again. And that's just using the frame fix it. I know that the reason I haven't used it is because her arse cheek is sticking through the bloody chair, but that's the point, is that that's using After Effects to slow down the animation and morph between the frames. But let me catch up. ZBrush for me is exactly how you describe Maya. Yeah, ZBrush is really involved. If you haven't got a graphics tablet, you haven't got a chance, really. Biggest change I would do in Daz would be add a favorite assets folder. Yeah, I would go with that. Group assets for things such as a character. Yeah, I suppose, yeah, that there is, considering Daz is all about metadata, the smart content folder, you feel like there is functionality that's missing from that. I would have to agree with you on that one. A plug-in version of Cycles like it does for Octane. I haven't really played with Octane. I used it for about 10 minutes. Realised I was going to have to remap all of my shaders and thought, you know what, I'll just stick with iRay. Right, what was I doing? I need to give this character an expression. Go with poses, expressions. Am I actually got hair selected? No. That'll be why my smart content's gone wibble. Right, let's try that again. Poses, expressions. Something natural. Oh, there's an actual... Try this one. Let's see if this looks any good. It could be Utter Gash. Fairly new one. Jesus. It's like Chandler's photo face, isn't it? Might be alright. Might be fine. Let's stick it in iRate and see what happens. I've just got to set up the camera first. Set up the camera. And focal distance. Oh, right. I need to actually turn that on. Give ourselves focal distance. Let's just narrow that down a smidge. Oh, where's my mouse gone? I hate it when it does that. Come on, stop dicking around. Yeah, that's the frustrating thing, isn't it? I mean, come on. What? My freaking mouse has gone mental. It does this for some reason from time to time. I have no idea why. Yeah, duplicate formulas is the bane of my life. It really is. Oh man, it's going to be very difficult to do this without... Come on. I can't remember how I usually fix this. It's like, right. Invisible mouse now, so this will be interesting how long this takes me. I'm kind of just using the force at this point. Right, depth of field is on. Focal distance is on. Yeah. Top left, let's go there. Come on. Oh, there we go. Finally, right. Got my mouse arrow back. Right, that's a really, really stupid expression, but let's have a look and see how it looks in iRay. Thing is, duplicate formulas problem is, hey Jiao, how you doing? I may have to just set some time aside to actually literally go through my entire content library and just find the duplicate formulas and just spend an entire weekend doing it. Right, let's have a look. The lighting's not great. She's a bit bright on a boob. I feel like her head needs to be looking more at the camera. Yeah, she is a bit derp at the moment, isn't she? Let's go to... Could do this manually. I'm just going to use a script right now. Yep. Look at the camera. Yeah, I don't know. It's bloody frustrating. Daz Studio being a perpetual work in progress. It's a funny thing. I don't know if it's just because devs, the devs of certain pieces of software are deliberately ignoring the problems. I've been there myself with my games in the past where people have complained about something that I don't really consider to be a major issue, but the quality of life stuff can be really frustrating. Like World of Warcraft, I remember when I played that and there were so many bugs, and yet they just constantly insisted on creating new content, and everyone was just like, can you fix the problems before you start introducing more? and maybe that's just me being naive, but I can empathise a little bit, as I said, because obviously I have had trouble in the past with rushing my first game out, so desperate to show everybody for content, and got lambasted, got absolutely torn apart because it wasn't ready. It was full of bugs and it was terrible. The models didn't look very good. The renders were very basic, and I've completely lost my train of thought now. Going down a little trip down memory lane there. Right, I need to zoom in more on her face, I think, because it just doesn't look right. 3/4 shot for someone having a conversation just doesn't do it for me. So I will aim up a little bit. Nope, that's the wrong thing. Undo that. It's focal length we want. Check that we are focused in on her eyes. Means getting all close, getting all up in her shit. See, it's not perfectly focused. Need to come back a little bit. And then open up about there. Absolutely ripped apart it was. But people are very, very cynical, and everybody who thought that I was just rushing to get it out because I was trying to make money from Patreon. Let me assure you, the money that you can make from Patreon, unless you are one of the very, very few, if you're not one of the 1% of people who get insanely lucky just from timing, you're lucky if you make $100 a month from Patreon. You know, the illusion that adult game devs make millions is absurd. There are 3 games that I can think of off the top of my head that did very well. Only one of them is still in development. One of them got abandoned, and one of them abruptly ended. They just threw all of the adult content in at the 5 minutes into the game. The plot and everything looked like it was quite interesting. The models were good. The dev didn't have much of a sense of humor because I took a jab at him in like a comical jab in my game, and he didn't take it very well and started making pissy comments on about my game. But then he threw all of the stuff that the whole point for me of an adult visual novel is that you don't just get, it's not just a here are the boobs, here's the shagging, blah blah blah, all in the first 5 minutes. You have to work for it. It's a reward for playing the game well. Maybe that's just my philosophy, I don't know. But the point is that yeah, you know, I wasn't interested in the money side of things. Don't get me wrong, I would love to get paid for doing this. I really would, but I'm not in that small group of people who are incredibly lucky, so it's probably never going to happen. So I just do it as a hobby. But yeah, no, I got ripped apart. That first game I did, my God, it's painful because you do put your heart and soul into creating something and people just rip it apart. But in hindsight, I look back and I get it. I understand. There are a lot of adult devs out there who did just do it for the money. And the expectation is higher, shall we say. Yeah, I thought the first chapter was good. But it should have ended when it ended. Because it's like any TV show where the first season is really good and gets you really hooked and all of that, and then the second season never lives up to expectations. It always disappoints. I think the only TV shows that I can actually think of that, I mean, Game of Thrones would be the first obvious one, but then they just waited for their disappointment till season 7 and then pissed off all of their fans. And then there's the seasons like that don't have a great deal of canon, like Bob's Burgers, for example. Really enjoy watching that, but you can watch an episode without having a pre-existing understanding of the previous episode. So there's not a lot of canon, not a lot of lore in there, you know. Yeah, definitely. Especially when it comes to inter-family stuff, that is the low-hanging fruit of the adult visual novel world, I suppose. It's getting better, but I'm bored of it. You know, I enjoyed the Oedipus complex exploration stuff as much as the next guy, but there's only so many scenarios that you can actually feasibly create for that specific type of content before it's just regurgitating the same crap over and over again. And that's kind of what you're seeing on the major adult sites now. It's just the same scenario played out with different actors. Yeah, it's a very linear story. It's the idea of having your choices impact what scenes play out with a certain. The same scenes are going to happen, but what you see in those scenes changes very slightly dependent on decisions that you make throughout the game or whatever. But it's still a to B storyline. Never heard of him. Never heard of him. Well, I haven't really been playing anything like that for a long time. I've been too focused on my own work, like not my own VNs, my own work in general. But if you could avoid name dropping people or games, this is YouTube. There's a reason we're being very clandestine about naming and stuff here. Right, am I happy with this render? Mostly. I do need to add. I'm going to drop out of out of iRay mode for a minute. I'm going to come out of my camera. No, but then I suppose it was one of the. It was one of the first. I don't want to say it's one of the first because that sort of game, that sort of content's been around for a very long time. But okay, I'm gonna do. I will do it with a plane, I think. Bring the plane over here. Probably a bit big, but that's fine. I can make it work. Rotate either way, it doesn't matter. Let's just go straight for 90 and drag it up. Go back into my camera. Where the frick is that gone? Where's the goddamn... Oh, right. That'd be why. It's friggin' miles away from the character. Yeah, it's alright. I just want to... Every little finishing touch, every little detail. Just adding a hairlight and a little bit of a highlight. I think I haven't used any 8.1 stuff yet. Well, not intentionally, I suppose I should say. Right, that's probably about where it needs to be. So I will apply my ghost light material to it. and see if that makes any difference. I might need to make it brighter. Yeah, so I think people forget the novel part of the visual novel thing. It's meant to be a story, a longer, enduring story. You know, there's a difference between a visual novel and a dating sim. Wow, that is right. Okay, so let's first things first. Let's make some adjustments to two-sided light. Turn that off. Right, that's lighting her. I'm using a RTX 3080. Right, that's a little bit better. That's giving me a little bit more light coming off here, but I think maybe... Now, which way am I looking? Let's go back into perspective view, drag it up and across a little bit. Not a huge amount, just a touch. There we go. What we're trying to do is just create some highlights. It was just a little bit flat. Hey, Jinxie. I haven't really read that much into the... I'm aware that there are changes to the facial rig in 8.1. As far as I know, apart from the UV changes, that's largely the only differences. I don't have that much of a problem with the old Genesis 8 UVs, to be honest. I mean, maybe when I've played with 8.1 a little bit more, my opinion will change, but I feel like that's a little bit too bright, to be honest. I come down to, let's try, I don't know, 600, just a random number plucked out of thin air. But I would say that it's the same with the, what's it called? Filament. I've not really played around with it too much because it's not finished. Once I'm sure that they've put enough time to make it worth my time. But I still use iRay to render, so I don't really see that much mileage. And you can see once the assets are loaded in my scene, jumping into Nvidia iRay preview mode doesn't take that long of a time anyway. Right, I'm going to go into texture shaded mode. I'm going to try something with her top. So go into that and edit object geometry, add deforce modifier dynamic surface. Yeah, it's really hard not to be cynical and just the way that Daz do a lot of things. Bear in mind their entire business model revolves around selling content from their marketplace. So it's really hard not to be cynical about the really careful, really trying to be diplomatic here. It's really hard not to be cynical about them bringing out an update to the Genesis 8 model that has such minor differences and yet requires you to buy new assets. It just doesn't quite add up. I use HDRI just mainly as a light source. I don't really... There have been scenes in the past where I've just used an HDRI because I was being lazy, but you know, I create my own HDRIs of a scene if I want to put 2 or 3 characters in a scene. I know that it's going to burn my memory and it's going to fall back to CPU, so I render the scene as an HDRI and then render the characters in it. That's really the only time I would use an HDRI as the whole scene. In this case, I've created a little scene environment. Tend to have a go. I generally try and always have some kind of backlighting. Will's Town Joe, just because I think it adds a little bit of a highlight to the character and makes him stand out a little bit more. Contraction expansion ratio, let's try 75% and see if that works. Right, I will apologize in advance now because there may be boobs coming up, because I'm about to simulate this, and if all of the parts of this mesh are not welded together, the outfit's going to fall apart and I will have to stop it freaking quickly. Because this is YouTube and they will hit me with a ban hammer if I accidentally show tits. Simulation settings, environment. Go with gravity 0.5. What in God's name did I do there? Air resistance 0.2, that works for me. Simulation, don't need the starting pose. Just want it to stretch, and this is good because it will work on a hair as well. So let's simulate. Let's see what happens. I will hit stop on the simulation very quickly if the top does start disintegrating. Hey Marshall, yeah, it should automatically go into the live streams on the channel. Right, so far nothing has fallen apart. Oh, hello. I know, John. It's a bit daft. Why is that just fallen over? That's just proper. No, it hasn't. It's still doing it. Oh my god. Oh, that's right. It's just having a bit of a think. Come on. What are you doing? Let's hope so. Right, I think Daz Studio is in the process of crashing. I don't think it liked that. Yeah, I might have to do that. Once I get it back, it's decided to keeps dropping out of the back for some annoying reason. It is doing a simulation, albeit very freaking slowly. Let's just slide that over there. It is trying to do it. It's only got two things to simulate, a hair and a top. Yeah. Don't worry, that point is not lost on me, Willstown Joe. It's I would like this. There we go. Right, we'll cancel that. So we can't simulate that top. On the upside though, didn't see any boobs. Yeah, nothing in Daz Studio is fast, even when you've got a powerful rendering computer. There is no getting around that fact. That's the point I try and drive home all the time. I get a lot of sort of beginners asking me questions about this, that, and the other, and they're always focused on how quickly they can do things and all that sort of thing. We've all been there. I was the same when I was trying to learn Daz. But realistically, the number one, yeah, D-Force explosion, amazing. Yeah, at least it did it at 2% and not. It's still going. That's the annoying thing. I wish it'd freaking hurry up and quit. Come on. Yeah, one of the first lessons that I try and kind of make a point of telling people is you got to learn patience. It should just be. I don't honestly know, to be honest. I think it's CPU. There we go. Right, we're going to right, can I undo? I think that was the last thing I did was add that node, so I should just be able to unadd that node. Let's just give Daz a minute to catch up. Undo gravity. Undo contraction expansion ratio. Oh my god, it's going slow. Undo. Right, it should now be undo, add the deforce modifier. It just takes forever to do anything in Daz Studio. Like I said, you just gotta... Oh, man. Right, I'll have to just delete it the old-fashioned way. Patience is the #1 key for Daz Studio. That's why I like RenPy, because it just... RenPy does what it's told to do as fast as you can tell it to do it. Right, open Sesame. Man, oh man. Things are going slow. Try not to die on me just now, Daz. I don't even do that anymore. I literally just force quit and reload. It's quicker. Oh my god. Right, let's see if I can just do it the hard way through the edit menu. The speed that it's working at the moment is horrendous. Oh, come on. Yeah, it does. It really does. If there were a better alternative, I would be using it. I'll be honest. Yeah, the other render engine is good. I learned to code, believe it or not, in... So there used to be these, I can't remember what they were called. They were like they weren't laptops. They were a little LCD screen that had 3 rows and about 25 character columns. And my handwriting was legit horrendous as a kid growing up. So my history teacher got me one of these things, and it was just meant to be a way of typing your homework, and then they could send it to a printer. Can't remember for the life of me who made them or where they were from. And that had a little basic. You could code basic into it. Remove deforce modifier, please. Thank God for that. So I learned to code in basic. And then it turns out I had a bit of a knack for learning computer languages, so I went to college to do a BTEC National Diploma in Computer Studies, where I learned to code in C++ and Pascal and COBOL. COBOL being the first time I ever learned object-oriented programming. But then I left college before I finished and didn't touch programming again for years. And then when I got into adult visual novels, I picked up RenPy, and Python is such a similar language to C++. It just made sense to me, you know. I just didn't really have any trouble loading. And then the thing with coding is you learn the language, but you also need to learn the quickest way of, or the most efficient way of coding something. Like I could explain to you how to make toast in multiple different ways, but there's a very efficient way of explaining how to do it, and then there are many inefficient ways of doing it. Exactly, yeah. You had to give every line, every line of code a line number. Yeah. Basic was. It was a great experience to learn how to code with it, because you learn very. You learn how computers think. In fact, I tell a lie. When I did my apprenticeship as an engineer in the Navy, the last job that I'd had to do before I qualified was to make a talking alarm clock from scratch. To had to make the printed circuit boards, had to put the whole thing together, to program the PLC and everything. And that was actually in machine language, which is... So for those of you who don't know, there's layers. So you have binary, which is the pure language that the processor speaks. Then the layer above that is machine language, which is loads of 3-letter instructions, like LDA is load the accumulator. And that's where you move, literally just telling the CPU to move memory around, moving numbers around in memory. And then you have the interpreter, which then is your languages like MS-DOS, COBOL, Pascal, BASIC, C++, C#, so on and so forth. So learning to speak machine language is graft because it takes a really long time to do everything. A little bit of BASIC on an old MSX computer. Fair play. BASIC was for anyone who's never done programming before, BASIC is a really good way of learning because it just gives you literally just go, it's called BASIC for a reason. It takes you right back to the very, very fundamentals. Right, what was I doing? Oh, right, yeah, I still need to simulate a hair. So I got rid of the simulation on the shirt. That is gone. It took freaking forever, but it's gone. So now I can go to simulate, and I can at least simulate the hair. Amstrad, crikey. Yeah, see, Amstrads and ZX Spectrums were, again, interesting to learn how to code on those things. Like the idea of Spectrum was a bizarre idea. The idea that you had to program your own games before you could play them, or play a tape in its entirety to load the instructions into the computer. I can still hear that noise now. Alright, let's go back to Nvidia Iron Mode and see if there's any adjustments that we can make. I really would like to fix the top, but I can't be bothered to load in ZBrush or something to fix it. There probably are morphs to fix it, to be fair, but Commodore VIC-20. Do you know, I don't even remember. Commodore 64, I think, is the first one that the first Commodore I ever touched. I'm assuming the VIC-20 is previous to that. Right, so I can fix this cleavage bump here in post, that's fine. I'm going to actually go with a, so that she stops. I'm definitely going to do it on the plane as well, that's cool. Sound of tape decks loading. Yeah, 56k modems with a say. Absolutely, you'd sit there and you'd hear your 56k modem dialing up, and you'd think, and it would remind you of the ZX Spectrum or the Commodore 64. The Amstrad, they all had tape loading as well. Oh, okay, one level under the C64. Ah, fair enough. Trying to remember the first. So my dad had a really basic computer. I think it might have been an Amstrad, but I was really young. I was, you know, we're talking sort of really early 80s here. The first computer that I ever had was probably an Amstrad console. I'm trying to remember what console was called. It had like it had Pac-Man on it, and Atari. It was an Atari. It was an Atari games console. You had the console. You had to push the console in, turn the power on. You had literally a power on and a reset. And you had paddles, and you had a joystick which had two buttons, but they did the same thing. So it was one button, but you could play left or right-handed because, you know, they were progressive back in them days. And I remember playing Pac-Man on this thing until I literally had blisters on my thumbs. I must have been about 7 years old, and I was playing Pac-Man, and I got what for me was a really high score. And I had a blister on my thumb, and obviously as a kid, blisters are the most painful thing in the world. You think your entire world's going to end. And I remember that being the first time my parents ever got vaguely excited about my gaming because they saw the score. And they appreciated that, for me, that was a big deal. But at that age, you go to school and you tell everybody, how amazing your score was, and they all go, oh, you know, I got 3 times that, and I must have been playing this thing for about 4 hours to get this score, like 1 round of Pac-Man for 4 hours. Can't even remember what level I got to, but, and they were all saying they got 3 times the score, which meant that they would have had to have been playing for like 12 hours or whatever, because it, you know, ramping up scores didn't really happen in those days. It was just you got 1 point for 1 chip or 1 dash or whatever it was that you're eating there, little bang, 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 bang. An Atari 2600. Let's have a look. I'm going to Google that because I'm trying to remember. Atari 2600. That was the one. That was the one. Yep. The Atari 2600. Yeah, it wasn't new and my dad bought it for me. I got a Nintendo Entertainment System and an original NES after the PlayStation came out. My parents did not have a lot of money. So yeah, for me that was a big deal. Oh mate, Amigas were next level. The first computer I ever bought for myself was an Amiga 600. Again, used, and it was way out of date because by then my mate had an Amiga 1200 with his 2 megabytes of RAM and his 50 megabyte hard drive or however much it was. And there was me using my Amiga 600 with its ability to use floppy disks. We've come a long way. We've come a long way since then. But even the PlayStation, and even the SNES, I remember playing Star Fox, thinking that was the best games were ever going to be because it was 3D. Amiga 600 was an epic. I remember watching. I think there was a game where they'd claiming that I can't remember. It's one of those games where you fly a spaceship around the screen shooting rocks. Deluxe Paint, goddamn. Deluxe Paint was the Deluxe Paint was the first place on a computer you could watch porn, or rather look at pictures of naked women. That's a dirt load. The 500 was a good bit of kit, and the 500 Plus was good as well, because they were they had the form factor of the 1200, didn't they? Whereas a 600 didn't have the numerical keypad. It was the shorter version, where the disk drive was where the numerical keypad would have been. Street Fighter 2 as well was the same. I remember watching Super Street Fighter 2 and you see that 2-frame animation of Ryu going and I thought that was the best graphics in the world. Asteroids, yeah, that could have been it. And they were lying about they were saying that the asteroids themselves were ray traced, and as we know, ray tracing has only really just become a thing. It's like so for a company to be claiming that they were doing that in the early 90s is a bit of a porky pie. I honestly don't know, Jordan. Good to see you, by the way. Your GPU overheats when rendering. Yeah, you need to make sure you've got a lot of space in your case and a lot of cooling. The GPU will keep itself cool in a lab, but inside your case, there's nowhere for the heat to go if you haven't got good fans. Like my CPU is liquid cooled, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fans sucking air through my case. 3 on top, 2 at the front, 1 at the back. So you got to make sure there's a lot of airflow space for your GPU, even where you put it in the case. If you have it too close to the bottom, not enough air can get through it, so it needs to be in your PCIe slot that's closer to the middle of the case so that the more airflow goes past it. Make sure that you've given it as much of a fighting chance as possible. Another computer that we used to use was Acorn Archimedes. I haven't seen any Acorn Archimedes since I was at school. But they were really good. They were like entry-level PCs almost. Talking about groundbreaking games, and do you remember Another Level? Another Level was like the first one, and then they did another one called Flashback. But it used I think that was probably the first game to ever actually use motion capture for animations. They were boring as hell games. They were just platformers. But the graphics or the animation was like the major selling point. I say they were boring, that's not really fair. They were like kind of the first ever versions of Abe's Oddworld Odyssey. It looks alright. It's kind of hard for me to see with the glare coming from the window behind, but it does look okay. I feel like there's something missing. Maybe there's too much dead space here and here. But I could fix that in post and just put some God rays or something in there. Like, oh, yes, scanners that you had to manually slide it down the image. And if you went too fast, it wouldn't capture all the pixels. And oh my God. Amy the Squirrel. Don't even remember that game. That doesn't mean I've never played it. I just don't remember it. Thinking about it, games back in those days were really bizarre. Like Treasure Island Dizzy, an egg called Dizzy that went on a treasure hunt. You think, who had that idea and what were they smoking at the time? Yeah, Ricky, definitely. Blender, Maya, even Source Engine, the Source filmmaker, is better for animation than Daz. Daz will do okay animations, but it's just not optimized for animations, so it takes a very long time to do it. Apache 864. That was a great game. Yeah, I remember Wing Commander 3. That used a lot of live. That was basically that was almost like a visual novel, really. You know, with a flight sim element in it. But that had Mark Hamill and Biff from Back to the Future were like the main characters. That was good game. Obviously, seeing live action in a game back in those days was like next level stuff. But the actual flight sim part of the game was really dodgy. But again, back in those days, we thought the graphics were the best thing in the world ever. I've completely forgotten what I was doing. All this talk of nostalgia computer games has completely thrown me off. Right, I was thinking about putting something in the background, wasn't I? Some kind of tricky. It's a really basic shot. I don't want to overdo it, but at the same time, I feel like that shot itself is just missing something. Movie Setter. I've not heard of that one. I'll be full disclosure, guys. Like the last 12 months of my life have just been mental. So I started working as a field service engineer, which paid okay, but meant being away from home 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. So I've had such a limited amount of time to actually concentrate on, like, so literally whenever I've had time to get any programming or rendering done, I've just sort of gotten straight in there and done it. I haven't had any time to really look at alternative forms of software or stuff. So the SFM, Ricky, there is a way of doing it, but it is a massive ball ache. It really is a pain in the ass to move stuff from Daz to SFM. In fact, I think the only methods that are currently like properly put online as tutorials are for Genesis 3. So converting between Genesis 8 or 8.1 and SFM, I don't even know how I would go about doing that. SFM is good because it has soft body physics, which means boob jiggle and bum jiggle and stuff like that are kind of done for you. But if you look up SFM animations on some of the adult themed websites out there, you'll see that realism kind of takes second place to the content, shall we say. The thing with adding, I've got some things pinged. Is that I don't know what that is. I missed it. Sorry. That was someone subscribing. Thanks ever so much for subscribing. You're a legend. The problem is if I put Ivy in the wall, I'd have to redo all the animation, all of the renders for the game because it's not there. I could maybe tilt the camera up a bit, catch the flowers or whatever. I do buy stuff, but I tend to take elements from the scenes that I buy and put them into my own scene. So this scene is a combination of assets from many different things that I've bought, many different products. And then obviously created my own bits and bobs as well. Movie Setter was a program on the Amiga. Oh, I see. I see. Now that you mention it, now I'm trying to think. Maybe I may have seen it. I'm just trying to remember. I don't want to say yes and look like a dick, but like the name does ring a bell now I think about it. Like, yeah, I do kind of mix and match. I buy assets, I make my own assets, and I just chuck them all in. I've done a couple of videos of not that long ago, within the last couple of months, I've done a couple of videos where I've just been. I think one of my Let's Render scenes was just me building a set of like a spare bedroom or something like that, just using assets from different places that I've bought them. So one of the things that, harking back to when I started doing this, one of the things that used to frustrate me about a lot of AVNs was that they all seem to use the same scenes, the same assets, and it was really annoying. I don't use that particular site. I have in the past sort of browsed, but I generally stick to the Daz Studio store, mainly because they have a much more strict quality filter. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything you buy from there is going to be great, but they generally have a much higher standard that their published artists have to reach before they let them sell. If you look at the content level, that's not me. Oh, someone else has subscribed or done something. Drosky Crypto, welcome. managed to get there in time to see that one. But yeah, I mean, you know, you get assets from where you're comfortable. Yeah, literally a shared universe. Yeah, it's like everybody, you know, all of the raunchy stuff seemed to be happening in the same. Daz is a great program, but recently they dropped Kepler support for GPUs, so now a lot of people need to upgrade. Yeah, there is. See, that opens up an interesting conversation, doesn't it? Because, for example, Nintendo don't make games for the Nintendo 64 anymore, even though thousands of people bought the console. But should they be beholden to keep making content for people or keep making software compatible with their old platforms? Or should they focus on keeping the content current? You know, I mean, like, Minecraft eventually will become an RTX game, or rather a ray tracing game, because they've already started developing that side of things, which means eventually if you don't have an RTX GPU, you will not be able to play it. But that's not going to happen for a very long time, of course. But, you know, if I was still using my GTX 960, I wouldn't be achieving any, I would be getting nothing done at this point, because Daz Studio now is very power hungry. Yeah, there's a lot of platforms for sharing free or paid content. Again, it's one of those things. Minecraft Dungeons, I don't know. I've watched people playing it on videos, but I've never played it myself. It could very well be 8-track tapes, blimey. Yeah, I just don't want to, like, people. Makes business sense though. The only tool you really need to use is Daz assets. Is Daz, yeah. Yeah, well, that's very true. Yeah, I can't argue with that, Aracle. I've had several refunds from the Daz store where I've bought something and it's turned out to be nothing vaguely like it. Like, there's been a thing recently where they've been selling things as Aniblocks, and then you actually load them and they're not Aniblocks. They're animations, which is different. I hope you understand what I mean. An Aniblock is something, so in Animate 2, you can load up your Aniblocks in here, and they will fill up, and they will literally work like dragging and dropping animations into a thing, which is great because they're easy to work with. However, when you get an animation, oh god, it's going to have a think now. It's going to have a proper brain fart. It's got keyframes for every single object in that animation along the timeline, which just isn't as, it's not as easy to use. Yeah, so see, these are keyframes that just tell the animation engine where everything is currently, and then if I were to change things throughout the timeline, you create keyframes for every single thing. So where you buy something that's listed as an Aniblock and then it populates this with keyframes, that's not what I'm after. That's not an Aniblock. Aniblock is something that works in Animate 2. Yeah, there's the thing is there's each has its uses. Animate 2 Aniblocks are useful for just quickly applying a animation that lasts for 3 seconds or whatever onto your character that don't require you to, so breathing, for example, if you just want your character to be breathing, which is something I use quite a lot in my animations, you can do that, and it doesn't require faffing around with keyframes or whatever. Whereas if you want a character to be holding something, you need to be able to make sure that their grip is correct then obviously using keyframes is a better way of doing that. Yeah, I don't use them often enough to be able to answer that one, Ricky. I would imagine that there's probably a way of favoriting them or something, but I honestly don't know. Let me just, sorry, we got pinged. Oh, it's just my broadband provider telling me that my broadband was working as if I hadn't already been streaming for an hour and a half. Let's just sort some things out while I'm here. And transfer. Oh, you tits, that's the wrong button. Technology. You'd think a YouTuber would know how to use a phone, but apparently not. Done. Sweet. Some games with ray tracing. Metro Exodus, prime example, a game that is boasting ray tracing. It has it, no doubt about that, but it doesn't, to me, make enough of a difference to be a selling point, if that makes any sense. Like Minecraft RTX, the difference is obvious. Yeah, I do that when I'm not. It's like that's like everyone's got their thing that they do when they're sort of concentrating. Mine is doing Johnny Cash. Yes, it's an upcoming game. It's I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to do it in chapters or if I'm just going to do it all in a one. Doing it all in a one is going to be easier for me because it means I haven't got to create some kind of integration. But obviously doing that means it'll be a lot longer before I get it out for anyone to see it. And I'm not currently got any plans to make any money from it. So the whole Patreon business model is ludicrous. And in hindsight, I now see that. The fact is, let's be honest, we all know the minute that an adult visual novel gets uploaded onto a Patreon page, one of the patrons or someone will come along, subscribe to your content for 1 month, download it, and then stick it on the pirate sites. They do. That's just how it is. So the notion that I can in some way control that and stop people from pirating my software is absurd. So, you know, I much prefer doing it the way I'm doing it now, where I've got my YouTube channel, I make a tiny little bit of ad revenue, and those people who want to support me can become members of the channel, or they can go and support me on Patreon. But the obligation to create X amount of content every 30 days isn't there, because people are donating to support my content without an expectation of getting anything in return, as opposed to the old model that everyone used to stick to, where you update, you have a free version and a patrons only version, and it's daft. The only real thing about all of the whole thing that's happened over the last few years that really bugs me is there are sites out there who put my content behind a paywall. So they're pirating my software, and then they are charging customers or patrons a fee for faster downloads, which means they're basically making money out of my hard work, and that annoys me because I'm not even making money out of my hard work. So, but it is what it is. Yeah, there is that. See, I did that with my first game. I was the one who uploaded it to the pirate site because I wanted exposure. I didn't even bother, you know. It wasn't even pretending to leak it. I just released it via that platform because I knew that was where I was going to get most traction, and I got a lot of attention. Most of it not very good because the first permutation of my game was crap, but yeah. Yeah, exactly. There is no sustainable business model currently for AVNs. Steam are now allowing people to upload them via Steam, but Ren'Py is not a platform that's going to work well with Steam, because Ren'Py, the functionality of Ren'Py makes it very easy to just copy the whole thing across. There's no easy way of applying any kind of copy protection on it. So, you know, even if you use Steam and you pay your $100 to upload your game to Steam, and you start selling your game on Steam, even if you sell it as an early access thing, all that's going to happen is someone from one of these pirate sites is going to buy it, download it, and then upload it for free. It's currently, well, it's probably still on the pirate sites, but I haven't got any. In fact, I don't even think I've got the original files. Yeah, but I just feel like that maybe if I were a bigger developer with a lot of resources and you know, and my entire livelihood depended on it, I suppose I could probably do something like that. I just feel like that feels a bit like bad faith. It's like Outrunners, prime example. You can't play Outrunners. Even though you're playing it single player, you still have to be logged into Square Enix to play it. That kind of leaves a bit of a bitter aftertaste, because it's clearly just... It would be okay if you needed to log in to start playing, but then it didn't matter if you stay connected or whatever. But the fact is, if you lose connection with their servers, you get kicked out of the game completely. And there are lots of games that do that nowadays, and I find that bonkers. But I'm one of those people, like a lot of people that we've been talking about retro games and stuff. We you know, back in the day, I said back in the day, that makes me sound really old, doesn't it? I'm only 40, for God's sake. You could go out and buy a games console and buy games, and you owned them. And if you wanted to give them to somebody else, just give them to somebody else. And whatever you did to that console, whether you know, if you wanted to start welding chips into it or something like that, it would be fine. You know, but nowadays, I mean, I heard a rumor. It's an old rumor from several years ago that Microsoft were perma-banning people who were using third-party hardware on their Xbox 360 or their Xbox One or something. Best post-processing software for still images is Photoshop. After Effects if you're doing video. I don't have enough experience with Sony Vegas to be able to comment. I've used other video software in the past, but Premiere Pro and After Effects are my go-to for that sort of thing now. After Effects just has amazing functionality. And obviously Photoshop. The thing is, I've got a Creative Cloud subscription, so I can use all the apps, so I might as well. I can't think of any other software developer who has quite such a broad spectrum of software that allow you to use it all for one price. You know, like, don't get me wrong, a full Creative Cloud license is not cheap, but to use all of that software for free, it's a no-brainer for me. If all you're going to be doing is using Photoshop or something, you're better off just using one of the free alternatives for the cost. But Photoshop's only $9 a month, something like that. Yeah. Xbox Live, get banned from Xbox Live by using the wrong hardware or something like that. Yeah, exactly. If you know, if the $10 a month is, I know that I appreciate that a lot of people just don't want to spend money. So GIMP is fine. I don't use it myself just because I've got the subscription to Creative Cloud, so I might as well use Photoshop. And I've never had any complaints, and it's what I've always used. I mean, even when I was a photographer, for that brief period of time where I was a commercial photographer, Photoshop and Lightroom were my go-to editing suite. I never used Adobe Bridge. I don't see the point in Adobe Bridge, but it has its functionality, but I just didn't need it with Lightroom. Seriously, what's going on? Leave me alone. Phone service, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. La 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 la. Everyone picks when I'm live streaming to try and get hold of me. No one talks to me for the rest of the time. Query, how is the sound quality? Can you pick up, I'm in a different room. I haven't filled it with acoustic panels like my old place, so I'm aware that there might be an echo. But can you hear an echo? Is it noticeable? Is it bad? Is it okay? For the money, it's insanely good. Oh, good. Happy days. Thank you very much, chaps. Much appreciate the feedback. Yeah, for me, Lightroom and Photoshop is a great thing. Natural Vision Evolve for GTA 5, so I don't have to pay 10. I don't even know what that is. That's how out of touch I am. Slight echo. Yeah, fair play. What I might do is I've got all the acoustic panels from my old place. I might stick them on some like hardboard or something and hang it up like pictures around the room, just to soak up some of that echo. I promise I will do something more productive in my next live stream. This one, I've got this shot set up. I'm just wondering if there's something else that I can add that would make it more live-like. Might adjust that's too much dead space that way. I go this way. I know it's only a door, but that might look a little bit better. Let's go into iRay preview mode and see that. It looks like we've got a fairly big delay at this point. Sort of 30 seconds to a minute of a delay, which just happens. The longer you stream, the bigger the delay gets. iRay is better than Octane, hands down. In my experience, should qualify that statement. In my experience, but that's just because I couldn't be bothered to remap all my shaders in Octane. Yeah, I could do. No, I've got a 3080 now, RTX 3080. The 2080 I only had for a month, I want to say, and then I returned it. I got all that stick from everybody for buying one. Oh, the 3080 is going to be out. But Amazon have a return policy, which is very useful. I'm playing with Octane and its PIA. Yeah. I remember when I first released it, and it was, yeah, I agree, Cinder. They released it and they made a big deal out of it being, like this all singing, all dancing, amazing alternative render engine. But there's no integration, so you change to Octane, and then it would copy across the skin shaders, but they'd look wrong. So it was, yeah, I got to a 3080. I ordered my 3080 about 8 hours after it was officially released. Still had to wait 3 months for the frigging thing to be developed, but delivered. But yeah, the Octane would work if it had some way that all of the shaders would automatically be converted and shipped across, but it doesn't. So it's it's useless, really. If its intention is to speed things up, it failed miserably. But it's the same with filament. I don't even I haven't even got it activated on this. I disabled it in this version of Daz just because it's pointless. It's of no benefit. I mean, you've all been sitting and watching my Nvidia iRay preview tick away, and it's not so slow that I'm particularly offended by it, So this new game, I'll tell you this actually. This is kind of so the new game that I'm currently developing uses the engine that we are creating in Let's Code Season 3. The engine that we're creating for Let's Code Season 3 is a fine-tuned version of the engine that we created in Let's Code Season 1. Much more streamlined, much better, and has new functionality that will make certain things much easier. So some of those features, so there's an auto event system now in the new version, which will allow you to, when you move on to the next part of the story, it will allow you to create events that trigger automatically very easily, so it'll just roll on to the next part of the storyline, which just makes life a lot easier. Achieve Blender quality animation in SFM. I don't use SFM, so I wouldn't be able to tell you, my friend. The quick answer is that you probably can't, because it's a different Source engine is a game engine. It's not really intended for animation, but Source Filmmaker does allow you to create animations. But in terms of, see you later, Cinder. Have a good one, friend. But the realism is that there's always going to be a limit on the whole reason people use SFM is because it's quicker, because it is a game engine rather than a render engine. So you are sacrificing reality for speed, basically. We're doing good. Cool beans. So I'm going to be recording over the next couple of days some more videos. This weekend I've moved house, so I've not had a chance to do any yet, but that's no longer a problem. So I'll be working on that over the next couple of days. It'll be a while before I'm back to one video a day, only because obviously shooting the gaming content was a lot easier. I haven't got a program, story, lesson plans or anything like that. Whereas tutorials generally take a little bit more time because I have to plan what I'm going to put in each one. I know it does generally sound like I'm winging it half the time, but I do actually tend to think about what I'm doing. So, but I will hopefully be eventually at a stage now that I've got a much faster internet connection, so uploading is a lot quicker. Means that I can put more content out there. Back in the old place, I was having to use a Vodafone GigaCube to upload, and it was, you know, uploading a 20-minute video would take in the region of about 2 to 3 hours, which is pretty cack. So, you know, shooting a week's worth of videos was a week. It took all weekend. So yeah, I mean, this will work. This render will be good. I'm quite happy with this render. I will eventually hit the render button. But I render in 2880, so I'm 1.5 times oversampling basically, so that I haven't actually got to wait for it to be completely finished. So when I shrink it down, the noise disappears. It's oversampling. Manual oversampling is an old technique that's been used for. No, I'm glad you found them useful, John. That's, you know, it's important. I feel, you know, I'm glad that people benefit from the content. There wouldn't be any point doing it otherwise. I was actually quite surprised at the response I've had from the Let's Render series. I genuinely didn't think. I just did the first Let's Render video and I kind of, I need to do something. I'll just record myself rendering something. And then it got such a positive thing. I was just, okay, I'll keep doing them. I'm glad that people enjoy it. I mean, I suppose there's things that people can gain from just watching me do what I do. Again, definitely not an expert. As I said in my very first video, just when I learn how to do something, I tell everybody else how to do it. I'm all about sharing that information. There's no point sitting on it. Like there's a lot of these guys who sit on, you know, they feel like if they keep it a secret, it's good for the visual novel economy if more people are creating them, because you need to keep the community alive. So by keeping things a secret from each other is not helpful at all. I never really used Bryce. I'm aware of it, but it's not because I think there's anything wrong with it. I've just never even bothered. Never even bothered using it. It might be amazing. It's like iClone, Real using iClone. I've recently been aware of there are some YouTube creators out there who've been showing integrations between Daz Studio and iClone. Never used it. Tried downloading it, couldn't get into it. Just again, the process of moving all of your stuff from one piece of software to another is meant to be seamless. If it's a ball ache, what's the point? Oh, good. Does he do other stuff? I've briefly, again, I don't have enough time in my sort of day to watch. I watch a PewDiePie video when he does one, and I'll watch like a You Always Win gaming video or something, but I don't really have much time to watch other people's Daz Studio content or whatever. But I know that he does them, WP Guru does them, but I don't know what other content he does. I don't think he's a specific Daz Studio channel, as he does other stuff as well. Not that I care, but it's I'm glad that there are other channels out there that push out the information. See you soon, Neville. Have a good one, man. Cool beans. Well, I'm gonna cut this off at the 2-hour mark. So in about 7 minutes, I'm gonna knock this one on the head. Oh, he does a gaming stream of the weekend. Yeah, see, I tried doing gaming videos for about, I don't know, about a year. Maybe people just don't like me enough or whatever, but I just found that it was more detrimental. People were getting fed up with getting notifications for non-Daz Studio and non-RenPy content. So it actually had a massive negative impact on my subscription levels. Since going back to just doing exclusively Daz and RenPy content, my analytics have gone back up. So it's not all about the analytics and everything like that, you know, as I say, but I just think I'm not a particularly entertaining person to watch. So people aren't going to watch my gaming content and stuff. That's why I moved it all into its own channel. I do like doing the gaming stuff. I still play the games. I just don't record myself doing it anymore. I'd like to. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to be able to do what You Always Win do, and they do 2 gaming videos a day, every day, and they get, well, they earn enough to keep 2 of them alive from doing that. So, you know, it'd be fun to be able to earn a living from playing games, but. Well, that's the point, isn't it? You know, people don't come here to watch me suck at playing games. That's why I'm put it into my own channel, into its own channel. Same with my photography stuff. I'd love to make more. I'd love to be able to do the photography stuff full time, but having been a professional photographer for several years prior to becoming an engineer again, being a photographer is really hard work. You're getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning, and you spend 30% of your day explaining to people why they should be buying your work rather than just doing it themselves. And 30% of your day is also spent listening to, oh, it's such a bitchy industry to be in. There's some really toxic people in the photography industry because everyone thinks they can do it really well. And you're constantly having to justify your existence. And I wasn't an expensive photographer. I mean, my wedding work was expensive because I was bloody good at it, but... Yeah, exactly. I mean, I watched an interesting video recently, actually, when they were talking about how variety channels aren't actually a thing. The likes of PewDiePie have managed to make a living from doing variety because people liked his personality from his gaming videos. and obviously he had a couple of controversies which gave him a lot of publicity as well. But essentially, people, he's one of the 1%, for example. He's entertaining to watch because he's not putting on some kind of persona or anything. He's just being himself. That's one of the reasons why I don't find Jacksepticeye quite so engaging, because he's clearly trying really hard, and I just find that a little bit nauseating. But yeah, anyway, this video was saying about how variety channels just aren't a viable model. People don't go to a random channel just to watch someone talk bollocks. You know, people go to gaming channels to watch gaming. They come to my channel to learn how to do Daz and RenPy. And so that's what I'm going to try and keep it as until, you know, and eventually I've done some Blender stuff as well, which got some people were interested in it, but I've sort of backed myself into a niche, really, haven't I? I just enjoy the interaction with people during the live streams as much as anything else. As I said at the start of the stream, the what you get from the comment section, people are a lot less, I don't want to say friendly. People are more critical in the comments when they think that they're not going to get a response. And there are some people who think their opinion is automatically right by virtue of them just having it. And so when I respond to them and say I disagree, they get really pissy about it. And it's just like, I'm not here to argue, I'm here to share what I know. And if you disagree, fine. Don't expect me to just go, oh, you're right. 2 minutes and then I'm going to knock it on the head, guys. I've managed to put together a render. It's the slowest render I've done in a long time because it's taken me 2 hours to get to this point. But there'll be more live streams coming up. Yeah, the unwind videos was a weird one. I can't even remember who it was. Somebody said that they just thought that my voice was quite relaxing. I don't know whether that's just because I've got a boring voice or whatever, but so I just did like some of the reading and all of that. I'm a big fan of ASMR. I'd never do ASMR myself, but if I can help someone have a slightly better day than they've been having just by reading them a story or by reading them a poem or something, then I'm up for it. You know, I've got one of my philosophies in life is that you have to at least try and make everybody around you, just try and lift them up a little bit. You haven't got to work hard to do that sort of thing, but if you're in a situation where you can make someone's day better just by virtue of being in it, then you've got an obligation to do it. And for the sake of 5 minutes worth of reading, it's not exactly a hard graft, is it? Yeah, exactly. Learning. But I'm like you. If I enjoy learning. I'm a sucker for information. I love gaining information, and if I have to be wrong about something to do it. It doesn't always work to my benefit, John, if I'm being honest, but yeah, I just say what I think. There's no point pretending to be something else, is there? One of the reasons why I think Daz deliberately went for a British person for their own tutorial videos but didn't ask me is because they knew I'd probably told them to piss off. To be fair, a paid gig like that would have been right up my street, but again, no company's going to hire me to tell the world how amazing it is unless I truly believe the product is amazing. That's why I'm a big fan of Adobe Creative Cloud, because for what you get for your money is great. Well, yeah, absolutely, Jordan. I firmly agree. I don't stream on Twitch, no. Twitch have got some really weird rules about if I was to start streaming on Twitch, I would have to stop doing it on YouTube or something. There's some weird exclusivity rule about you can't stream and be paid by YouTube and Twitch at the same time. I know I'm not being paid to do this stream, but if I were to start streaming on Twitch, I wouldn't be able to do it on YouTube or something. I haven't really read into it, but I'm aware that there is some kind of rule about it. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, genuinely really appreciate that. You know, some of you have been here for the whole 2 hours, which is insane. So I'm going to knock it on the head now after a couple of hours, and I will probably not be back today, but I will be back to do another stream tomorrow. I've got to do a bit of driving tomorrow, but I will be on in the evening, UK time. Yeah, you can. Yeah, yeah, some kind of weird rule, but I'll look into it. Anyway, guys, thanks ever so much for watching, and I do mean that genuinely. I will see you again.